Okay. Things seem to be checking out well. How's it going, sir?
Very well, very well. How you doing? Saturday.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. As I said, in the green room, I got a big week ahead, so I'm looking forward to having some fun today. Chatting with you and about this interesting script we have.
A
We
good
have
script. Yes. I always like a week where I like the script. So, yes.
all right. Well, I mean, there's a spoiler on whether or not we it's green
I didn't
light
say
or
how
not.
much I liked it yet. I didn't say how much.
It's a no, you're missing the format of the show, TJ.
Skipping it all. Great show. See you, everybody. Good night.
Go read it. Right. No. It's no. We'll have a fun discussion today, because yeah, we got an interesting script, for everybody. So yeah, let's if we are coming through good, which I think we are, let's get underway with everything. All right, welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs discussing scripts both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I am your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me this week, returning again, TJ Mack of Mac Media. Glad to have you back, sir. Yeah, we got an interesting and fun script to review this week.
Yeah, as always, a pleasure to join you. I'm kind of filling in for somebody else, so it's back. It's always nice to come back a little sooner than expected. And yeah, Paparazzo. This was fun. I enjoyed this. It was a good script by Christian Nilsson.
Christian Nilsson. So this placed 41st on last year's blacklist with 13 votes. TJ, why don't you share with us the log line for Paparazzo?
Okay, logline is desperate for fast cash to help his ailing mother, an opportunistic outcast partners with a wily paparazzo who entangles them in a homicide involving young celebutantes.
That's right. For the synopsis, Fang, a quiet 22-year-old Taiwanese American, aims to fund his dementia-stricken mother's care through paparazzi photography. Pursuing a lucrative shot, Fang unravels a star's dark secret and possible murder. With thugs and cops closing in, his next move could cost him all. As he snaps the shot, a shadow hints at betrayal. So this is a definitely a type of low budget, low stakes on the global stage, high stakes on the personal stage type of story. A little bit about the writer, Christian Nilsson. He is his biggest claim to fame is doing a movie called Dashcam, which he wrote and directed during the course of the pandemic. This script, in fact, that we're reviewing today is apparently in development, and we're undergoing development with a smaller studio to see if it's actually going to go into production. So we get to have the first sort of take on this script. It's already got some positive vibes, which is nice to start out with. We've had a little bit of a slump on the show the last few weeks with some less than stellar scripts. So hopefully, as discussion goes and we start breaking down these scenes, we might break that streak tonight. So let's throw it out to you, TJ. What were some of your first impressions with like the first act of this script? How Fang was introduced and the dichotomy of his situation and relationships.
Yeah, so in my head, I'm trying to decide where Act One ended. I think so. For me, Fang was great, very believable, very organic acceptance of his character. You know, sometimes characters have to grow on you for a while, or they seem a little far-fetched. The paparazzi world is not something I'm very familiar with or even interested in. But I was like, okay, like your thinning script, I'm like, okay, I believe that you should always start positive, not even neutral, but positive. Say, I'm going to trust that whoever wrote this, the amount of time they put into it, it's going to be worth my time. Let's go. And didn't disappoint. It never reversed from there like some scripts do. I didn't feel like it was wasting my time. And as far as Fang, I liked it. I liked the small reveal. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but where we see where his real living situation is versus what we think it is in the opening scene.
Yep.
That was really cool. We meet the people around him was great. And yeah, the way we kind of see getting, because you see these paparazzi, and a lot of them have such bad reputations because they're so aggressive and some of the crazy things they do to get their pictures. And I've never really thought to put too much thought in, like what was their first day on the job like, right? I've never done that. It's
Right.
not something, but this script brought that to me, and I can always appreciate when a script gives me a whole new point of view, something fresh. In a world of remakes, prequels, sequels, live action from animation, everything that we're getting, it's nice to get something somewhat original. And when I first saw this, I thought, okay, are we dealing with a Nightcrawler here? What's this going to be like? And thankfully, it was lighter than Nightcrawler was, for
It
sure.
was, but there's definitely some overlap, I would say,
Yes,
in the
yes.
subject matter. One of the things that I appreciated is the fact that it does highlight how, and I know about paparazzi because I work in Hollywood and I see them constantly. Paparazzi are incredibly desperate people. Like you don't get into it for the art of photography. You get into it because it's quick cash, and it used to be really lucrative, up until around Facebook became a thing. That's when prices started going down because people were just generating their own articles with their own pictures that they're snapping, as a tourist or just wandering around, with the invention of the smartphone, posting it online and getting revenue that way, as opposed to selling it to a tabloid or newspaper outlet for, a few $1,000 a photo. Now, and I liked how this script kind of highlighted that, because we introduced it to Fang, who he's waking up very early in a dormitory, of sorts, and throws on a thin jacket, grabs a camera, an old 35 millimeter SLR, so it's not a digital camera, it's a film camera. And we find out from the residential advisor that he's going to start a new job that he got on Craigslist that requires his camera.
That always ends well.
And what's funny is that this takes place, I guess, in the latter half of the year because it's freezing out. And so the residential advisor offers him a parka coat that he can wear while he's going to work. And so
New York City, we forgot to set location.
yeah, he's in
but
New
we're
York City. So he's described as like a kid from Queens named Fang, which begs the questions like, is he first generation American? And I think he is in this part here, because his mother, his mother is in a nursing home suffering from dementia. And so he's basically, that's what he is trying to do, is he's trying to basically just make some money, get a job. And in the first act, we're set up to believe that this is kind of a student thing that he's doing, because he's 22, he's of the age of a university student, and he's looking for work. And the first person we get introduced to in this world is a guy named Bernard, who has told him to meet at this place outside a hotel and wait for him. And outside this hotel is just tons of men with various digital cameras or cell phones or what have you, and they're all stepping over each other, and they're all throwing ad hominem and insults and whatnot at people. And what I thought was pretty interesting is that Fang notices this one guy has a fat wallet in his back pocket. And as he connects with Bernard for the first time, and Bernard's like kind of showing him the basics of the ropes, he ends up discreetly pickpocketing this guy. And then
after he was rude to Fang, don't forget
after
that.
he was pretty rude to Fang, yeah.
Yeah,
And then says, "Hey, is that your wallet on the ground?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, thanks." And he picks it up and realizes it's empty. And Fang is already with Bernard. Bernard is taking him away from the group, and he's showing him the ropes of what it is to be a paparazzi or a paparazzo, and that is try not to be where all the others are, because they're all going to get the same type of photos, and they're all going to put them on the same listing, and your news agencies are only going to pick one of them. So you kind of want to have the more unique photo you can, or the most original photo you can of the subject in question, so that you can get the higher payout. And what I liked about this little introduction here is that Bernard is constantly avoiding how much money is to be made from this. He doesn't go there right away. He basically talks about like the white whale, call me Ishmael and all that stuff. And he has this beat up SUV that's so old you still have to manually roll down the windows. Like that's how old this thing is. He's clearly had it for like 30 years, and somehow has miraculously kept it running in a place like New York City. So Bernard steps into this mentor role, and he's trying to show Fang the ropes, and he's pulls out a laptop. He says, like, this is what you need. You need to know celebrities. You need to know where they're going to be. You need to follow them on their socials. Find out where they're going to be so that you can take their photos. And then also when you're driving around, you gotta keep an eye out for essentially an Escalade limousine. And it's always going to be an Escalade because that's what all the celebrities like to use. And we get our first interaction of that outside of a modest hotel where there's an Escalade. And Bernard,
hold on. Hit pause before we go into that.
Sure.
Let's talk about the camera is almost a character in and of itself because of what he shows up with. So let's talk about
the camera
first.
bag. Actually, that's more of the characters. But yes,
yeah. It looks like a face. I think is how they described it, right, with the eyes and the smile.
Yeah. So it's got two buttons. It's a traditional camera bag for a 35 millimeter, but it's got two buttons and it's kind of got a pattern on the body. And the two buttons positioned where the pattern is makes it look like it's a smile, like it's always smiling. And this camera used to be Fang's mother's, and he considers it a lucky camera. And when Bernard cross-examines him on that, he can't define the luck part. But let me throw it to you with a little bit of, like, share with us a little bit of Bernard and what he's doing with Fang in this opening part of the script.
Yeah, so and this will go back to, like I said, the character building, especially in this first act, felt really organic to me. I believed totally 100% in these characters. Nothing felt weird. Nothing felt forced. No cliche monologue. When on this topic, when they're talking about the camera, I just thought it was funny because when he whips out this 35 millimeter, camera that uses film, Bernard was just like, "What is that? What are you doing?" And he's like, "It's my lucky camera," right? And we don't know much about either of these characters yet, but clearly it's not very smart to show up without a digital camera. And then Bernard explains to him why, right? The importance of speed. Whoever gets the picture. And this was interesting too that they have. I didn't know this, but it makes sense that they have like a central hub or a website that they dump their photos to, and then other magazines and stuff go to that same thing to then buy them, right? So
Right.
it's like you just throw it up there. You don't have to like reach out. Because I could have sworn when Nightcrawler, wasn't he reaching out directly to some of the news agencies to give some of his footage?
Yeah,
it's been a while since I saw that movie.
because he was doing videography. So it was also. I mean, Nightcrawler came out like 8 years ago. So
is it already 8 years?
it feels like that long. I'll double check, but it came out a while ago, and Nightcrawler came out 9 years ago. 11 years ago, 2014.
Jeez.
So
okay, well,
completely different playing field. So there's still legacy media and over the air media still buying footage. So there's that to factor in here. This is more modern day, where it's like, well, it's magazines, print, and social media websites and news magazines as well. So
yeah, and I just thought that was interesting that it's that organized. Of course it is, right? Of course it is. It's just not something I've ever put any mental thought into. It's another slice of this world that I'm like, hey, thanks for the script because I learned a little bit here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. You have your photos, you dump it up there. There's all these other third parties that are interested in photos. They scan them. They have people that watch them. They have alerts probably. And they're like, oh, here we got one for this. You probably tag your photo with whoever the celebrity is or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they get instant alerts. And then whoever gets it bids on it faster or buys it really, really quickly. And then you get maximum dollar for it because you were first one to bite out of the apple, right?
Right.
So I just thought that was really cool. And the thing with the camera, it kind of comes back later in the story as well. So I just felt like this was a key thing for him to show up with such a... I guess it comes back several times in the story, but for him to be using this old school camera, is there some sort of, aside from just like a plot, causing conflict somewhat with the plot because we've got this clunky old camera, do you think it's any other reasons why the writer put this in the script?
I think it's because it's a connection to his mother. And that's a subplot of this story is that he's very much, cares
his
about
motive,
his mom and his motive. The other part too is that it's also an obstacle, and it's one that he has to overcome, which is that because he's got an SLR camera, he's got to go and get that film developed. And where in modern day New York are you going to find a film lab for 35 millimeter? It's really going to be really hard.
Right. And that's, I was just reading that line from Bernard right after he sees it. And this is Bernard's line. This is great. He says, digital camera. Digital means means quick uploading. What are you going to do with the film? Drop it off at a 1 hour photo in 1998? I'd rather you use your phone.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, he's got this newbie that shows up. We've all been the new person on the job, and there's somebody who's done it for a long time that mocks us in some way, shape, or form. And here's poor Fang just out there first thing in the morning. It's still dark outside, and he's freezing, and he just shows up with the best he can. And it just kind of like it adheres you to him as a character. You're like, yeah, I feel bad for this guy. He's doing the best he can, and clearly, between the Q&A between him and Bernard, we get a little bit more about what he's doing and what he wants, and why he's even interested in this life. And it's money. He needs money basically for as basic a thing as ever. He says food and shelter basically to Bernard, and so there's no grandiose, prideful, sinful, however you want to like brand it thing that he's not in it for the lifestyle. He's there to earn some money, and we'll soon find out it's even more of a selfless reason why he's doing it, which is cool. I don't know if you want to get into that yet.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a moment, but we have this speech from Bernard where he basically asks Fang, what does he want out of this? What's his goal? What's long term? And Fang's long term is basically saying, I would like, a place to live and a hot meal. and you chuckled at Bernard's response to that, which was,
yeah, Bernard basically says I think you just described prison, which was, I thought that was a great line for him to be like, yeah, it's pretty basic there, right? I think Bernard definitely would have expected more of because I want to meet celebrities, I want to be a part of this world, like something more along those lines, and get paid while I'm doing it, make lots of money. And instead, he gets this very meek and humble response, which, again, one more thing that makes me go, yeah, I like Fang. Fang's a good guy.
Yeah, and then we find out from Bernard that the reason he's doing this is he wants to create his own media empire. So he's got very grandiose dreams.
And I would say in parentheses, and pay off the loan shark, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the loan shark that is funding his media empire.
Yeah. There's paying someone back because your life is at risk is always good motivation. Is it a carrot or is it a stick? In this case, mostly stick, a little bit of carrot for Bernard.
Right. But all this conversation is happening while they're parked outside this hotel. One thing that's kind of interesting is that Fang recognizes a character actor who's named Santiago, who's just kind of walking alone down a back alley, and he's like, oh, that might be something, and Bernard is like, if you don't know his name right away, then he's not anything, like, don't even bother. But what's interesting is that this Santiago character does come back into play a little bit later, and while this is going on, Bernard is kind of digging into the limo driver of the Escalade, trying to figure out, like, well, who are you waiting for? Who's in there that's coming out? And of course,
maybe he just keeps saying maybe.
He just keeps maybe because he's trying to grease him with some money, and Bernard doesn't have any to do it. so they're not getting anything. So they have to just kind of sit there and wait. And eventually, a group of models come stumbling out of the hotel, and as soon as Bernard and Fang sort of get on the scene and start taking pictures and calling out to them to smile and what have you, they immediately go into like model mode, where they're playing it up for the camera so that they can look as good as possible while they're entering this Escalade. And at the back of the line of these models is a former child star named Nina Cross, who's like, she's 24, and she feels she's a little gaunt. She's not as glamorous as the other models around there, but she makes eye contact with Fang, and Fang captures a really good shot of her as she's heading into the Escalade limo. And Fang tries to point out some information about Nina Cross, and this is where we get some actually really well-positioned exposition, because Bernard's like, Nina Cross is a nobody. She's a failed child star actor. The only thing that's interesting is that she's married to this guy named Riley, who also was a child star actor, but he's made it to the mainstream as a grown-up movie star, A-lister of sorts, who, of course, goes through rehab and various crimes. And he says, if you got a photo of him, that would sell, but a photo of her means nothing. And you kind of see what this tier list is with regards to the celebrities and how it tracks with the paparazzi, and also the fact that you have to get a picture that's good enough so that the newspapers that buy it can generate a story. And then you kind of see a little bit of the wheels turning. It's like, oh, they're forming a fictional narrative based on these photos, and it's not real journalism. It's actually now gossip. It's TMZ. And I thought that was kind of a fascinating take again.
Yeah, and I mean, he talked. You talked about how he doesn't get too specific on pricing for photos. He did talk a little bit. I remember he talked a little bit about what they used to make. Right, he does go
Yes.
into that, and then he does talk about a little bit about like what in this one in general. So he's teaching him like, hey, who's worth your time and who's not, and basically because Riley's he's the big star who's imploding right now. He's much more interesting to get photos of, and
Right.
Nina's just the wife of this man, and so Feng's got to figure this out, and yeah, it's not a lifestyle I envy at all. I mean, I can't imagine just sitting out there and camping, just trying to get one shot and being so obsessed with this. But I mean, do you know offhand, like what is? It's not like it used to be. Clearly, we've said that. But what is it? What can a good paparazzo make right now? Like 200 grand a year, 100 grand a year. Like what are they doing? It doesn't get you very far in LA.
Well, I mean, they don't all live out there. A lot of them kind of like fly in or commute. Or like again, it's not just California. It's Atlanta and New York and a couple of Midwestern states that also do filming because they're trying to get people in between productions. And then of course in the UK. Now, I'm not 100% sure what they would make annually. I don't expect it to be a lot because most of these people tend to live out of hotels or their car or a Winnebago or something because they're traveling all the time. They're following celebrities. They don't really have a home base.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
But like the stuff that I remember when I would talk to a couple of them back in the early 2010s, they were probably making like maybe 35K a year. Like not a lot.
To live like that, like geez, it's not even worth it. So is it just being around the celebrities? Is that a huge motivator for them since they're not making a lot of money?
Well, it's the fact that there's always going to be a big payday for like that one photo.
Oh,
Like,
so you're hooked on that. Which is
yeah,
this script captures
it's kind of like
very well.
gambling.
It's
Yeah,
the white whale thing, right? You're just hoping for it.
yeah, it's a form of gambling. It's like if they're lucky enough to be in the right position at the right time, and they get that right shot. Like, do they get the thing with like Tara Reid and her dress malfunctions and you can see her exposed breast? Like, they want to capture that shot because that's worth like a few grand for the tabloids. Even though they're going to blur it out, they've got the shot, right? So that's the type of stuff that you're looking at, and it's also rather well reflected here because what ends up happening is like, so Bernard uploads his photos from his digital camera to a laptop, and then he teaches Fang to use these various programs to kind of like sharpen the image and correct the color and whatnot, and then crop out people that are not important, such as Nina, who's always in the background of these shots. So he teaches him how to crop her out, and then he uploads it via his account to this database here, and then he gets like $16, I think, or something of that nature. Like not a lot of dollars, and that won't be accessible until the next day. So it's kind of like really sad that they spent all that time for almost nothing. And I think at the end of that day, they end up getting like maybe $100 or so.
Yeah, I can't remember. It wasn't very much. I just remember being like, this just seemed like a waste. But yeah.
Yeah, so you find out that it's actually it's really sad. I mean, and it also kind of conveys to Fang how desperate he is for just any money. Because he's got like nothing, so like I think on their first day they get of all the photos that they sell, they get a total of like $154, and then we find out that Bernard, he only has about $903 in his bank account, so he's really doing bad.
Yeah,
but he's hired this kid. And he's made a deal with them, which is an 80-20 deal, which means because he's paying for everything, he gets 80% of whatever they make, and Fang's paid 20, and it's not great. But Fang needs to do something because he's got film in his camera that he needs to get developed. So after he's done with Bernard for the day, Fang finds himself at this old type of photo shop. And he needs to get this film developed, and of course, it's going to cost him more money than he's got. Because remember, he only has a few bills that he stole off that paparazzi guy earlier that was rude to him. And he's basically saying like, hey, is there like a student discount or something? And the guy's like, no, but if you're a student in photography, you can actually develop it yourself for free. And so that's
Yeah, I
what
believe
Fang
15
says.
bucks. It saved him $15, I think was the amount. So
Yeah,
that
something
kind
like
of shows
15.
you
Yeah,
like
something like that.
the margins here are so so small.
Or
Yeah.
entirely small. So
Yeah.
Fang says, yeah, I'm a photography student, and he mentions one of the colleges,
Show,
and
shows his ID really, really, really fast, like
really
when someone
quick.
pretends
Yeah,
to be a cop in a movie, and the guy
yeah.
falls for it, and it works. Yeah, it's
And
pretty funny.
so he goes into the dark room, and on his phone, he watches YouTube videos on how to manually develop film, and luckily he finds the right one, and he starts doing the chemical mixture and getting it done, and he screws up a couple parts, but he ends up getting the shot of Nina, where we see how good of a shot it is. Like, she's making eye contact with the lens, and it kind of like penetrates your soul type of thing. So he gets that developed, and then he starts to head back home, and this is where we get this really cool, interesting twist, and that is he goes up to the dormitory, and the security guy there says, "Hey, okay, show me your IDs to get in." And of course, he says he doesn't have the student ID, and he's like, "Well, then you're not getting in here." And so we follow Fang a little bit later, and he goes down the street, and he ends up going into the homeless shelter. We realize that this is where he was spending the night in the first place. And the residential advisor that gave him the Parker earlier opens the door on him and says, "Hey, yeah, I can't let you in because it's past curfew, but I mean, and they're really a pain in the butt over here. But if you have a place to go there, and then if you can make it back tomorrow, I'll let you in before curfew, no questions asked." And that's where we get this huge hit of empathy for Fang when we realize like he's homeless, and all he's got is his camera and the clothes on his back and his phone, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I have to say it was a pretty good reveal, done quite well.
Yeah, because you're totally under the impression in that opening scene that he's a college student just kind of sneaking out of his dorm room is what it seemed like. And so if you film that right, yeah, you can totally mislead the audience until then. And this is a good redirect or misdirect because you don't feel cheated when the reveal does happen. And those are good. Those are good surprises. That's what we want, right? We don't want to be surprised by something just for the sake of it. And yeah, I thought this was really cool. And we see that his relationship with his mom, his love for his mother, I guess would be a better description.
Yeah.
And you see the situation that she is, which she has early onset Alzheimer's.
Well, dementia officially.
Oh, dementia.
Yeah,
Dementia,
because Alzheimer's is only really properly diagnosed after death, but it's suspected of a diagnosis while alive. But yeah, she's got onset dementia. So what Fang ends up doing is he ends up going to this public care center that his mom is in, and we find out that he's actually figured out what the passcode is, and he has a note on a notepad on his phone. He has a list of all these passcodes to locked doors that he is gathered over who knows how long, and he uses them to get into buildings so he can have a place to sleep or stay. And so he ends up getting into the public care center at like 1:30 in the morning, and he goes and he sits by his mother, and his mother is in her 50s, and the only thing that she can say is "what I need." That's it.
Yeah.
And it's in different tones. Sometimes it's mumbling, sometimes it's soft, sometimes a little loud. But that's that's all she does. And Fang, he's there with her. He kisses her forehead. He makes sure that she just gets her sleep, and then he just kind of sleeps next to her in the chair until early morning, for a few hours, so that he can get up and get out before anyone finds her.
And there's a cool
Finds
shot
him
where he soothes her and she finally falls back asleep and he's falling asleep, and then we see a picture of the two of them like 10 years before that.
Right.
And we get to see she was a lot thinner and he was a little boy, and I believe the camera was they were taking a picture of themselves in a mirror, and you can
Yes.
see the camera in the shot. So again, a nice little cool thing to show you a little backstory and make you care more about Feng, because we now know he's resourceful, we know he's humble, we know he's struggling, lots of great conflict that's easy to believe. And then of course the coup de grace is now we meet his mother and see her situation, and Very cool motive for this character. So yeah, I'm loving the script so far at this point when I first read
Yeah,
it. So.
and he has this really like endearing scene where he's trying to help her like clean herself up, get bathed in the bathroom. Like, you know, he's washing her hair, and she's just kind of like a little kid, either staring blankly or just kind of, you know, moving his arms away and trying to be left alone. But like, so you understand his struggles. And then, of course, you know, it's the next day. He heads back to meet Bernard, and yeah, he shows him the photos that he's managed to upload to a USB drive, I guess, at the photo shop that he was at earlier. And Bernard, of course, criticizes these photos because they look ancient and there's tons of grain and all that type of stuff. But when Bernard's not looking, Fang ends up uploading the photos, and he puts one on the sales platform. And so yeah, that's basically like that's the first little, you know, carrot that's thrown out there.
$600, I think, was that one, right?
That one, yeah, came in for $600, but Bernard hasn't figured that out yet because he's getting a call from like an agency rep that's saying, "Hey, we're looking for this country singer who's rumored to be pregnant, and we want to get a picture of the baby bump." And Bernard's like, "Okay, let's go. This could be it. This could be great. It could be around, like they said, the bidding offer for it is starting at $16,000." So Bernard is very, very happy about this. And the moment that he's about to go and get this thing, they're like, "Well, first we have to find where she could be." And so this is where Fang kind of demonstrates his social media navigating skills, because apparently, I guess, one of the supposedly the father or the boyfriend took a photo recently that's on Instagram from the hotel room, and he manages to identify the curtains and carpet pattern from that photo on all the hotels that in New York that shows, you know, sample pictures of their rooms, and is able to narrow it down to what hotel they're in. And just as he does that, Bernard gets an alert on his account that, you know, Nina Cross's photo that Fang took sold for $600, and he was really surprised by that. But he's like, "Okay, this is good, and this is how it's, you know, this is kind of how you do it." And this is where he further explains the 80-20 thing, which of course you feel empathy for Fang again, because he's the one that took the photo, he got it developed, he uploaded it, he should be getting the majority of that cash. But of course, Bernard is a sleazy mentor of sorts, and yeah, so they're basically like on their way to try and do this thing, when all of a sudden some guy named Gid shows up and stops them from driving into the city to go meet or to snap this photo. And he basically threatens Bernard. He's like, "Hey, you got to go to this location right now. You got to pay me my money, and if you don't, I'm going to make a world of hurt." And of course, I'm thinking here in the back of my head, like, oh, isn't this kind of ironic? Gid wants money from Bernard, and the very thing he's doing is preventing Bernard from getting the money that Gid is going to need to get his debt paid off. And it's good dramatic irony. So share with us a little bit about Gid, what your first impressions were, and you know how he fit into this part of the story.
Okay, so Gid, and you're talking on that scene, he ends up making him sign over the title to his SUV, right? Didn't that also happen right then? So yeah, I mean, Gid's a loan shark. He's fine. He's fine. He's a little like what we talked about in the green room. I feel like overall there's all of the side characters kind of feel they're not fleshed out as far as they could be.
Right.
I don't want to go so far as say they're stereotypical. There's definitely some of that there, but they're like in stark contrast to Fang. Fang, like what we've been talking about, you can hear all these great details that make him very endearing, right? Very believable as a character. Mm-hmm. And I would say Gid is kind of like, he's a loan shark. He's a character from every mob movie you've ever seen.
But he's described as a lot more of a weaker and less intimidating physically person. But he's got this attitude and I guess a fortification and support that makes him terrifying to a guy like Bernard.
Yeah, and I'm sure part of that is just that's your perception, right? If you owe this person a lot, and you maybe I'm sure there's backstory we haven't gotten in the film about what he's done to other people. So Bernard's got good reason to not, not love the guy. But yeah, I felt like he was okay. He was fine. I didn't hate him. He was there. He served a purpose. And he was going to get his money. But yeah, the irony was not missed on me either that he was getting in their way of getting that shot of the country, the pregnant lady. So, yeah, it was fine. What about you?
I thought it was kind of a little clever, but I liked how the scene makes you feel frustrated for Bernard and Fang because they're losing daylight because of Gid's demand for cash that doesn't exist. And Bernard is trying to talk his way out of it in every possible angle, going so far as to say that Fang's his business partner, and that they just got a couple $100 from a photo that they uploaded, and now they need to hightail it uptown if they're going to have a shot at getting 16K. And of course, Gid, he's not really buying it. He's exercising some scrutiny here. But Fang just kind of plays along and says, "Yeah, hey, come on, meet us back here tomorrow, and we'll have your money and everything." And so Gid gives them a chance, and after getting the car signed over to him, allows Bernard and Fang to get there. And as soon as they show up, another paparazzo has actually is just packing up his gears, and he has managed to catch the photo, the $16,000 photo from that. So they're too late because of Gid. And again, great empathy. You feel for Fang and a little bit for Bernard here because if Bernard didn't make that decision to invest with a loan shark or get a loan shark to invest in him, he would have most likely scored that 16K after Fang had figured out where the country singer would be. And
yeah, and I think it's a natural way to crank up the pressure on our protagonist and his I don't know what you want to call him, his boss. And so yeah, it was fine. I didn't feel like any of this was stupid. I guess for lack of a better term, I feel like the script and the plot were working great at this point. I just felt like we could have had a little bit more creativity on the side of Gid. But yeah,
he's
as
very
far as
boilerplate. Yeah.
yeah. But as far as the story was concerned, then yeah, that whole situation sucked, and for them to it kind of made me wonder about if. So whenever I'm reading, I'm sure we all do this. We're always looking at hey, where's the story going to go? When we see Gid next, what's going to happen next? Because now he's got the title to the car, correct?
Yep.
So I feel like we're building in a way that's believable within the context, but we also have the contrast of we have Fang's financial woes that are completely external that are being forced on him, and then we have Bernard, who it seems like his physical woes are all self-inflicted, and I like that contrast between those two characters at this point.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that's kind of a nice little setup for the stuff that Fang is going to use later is Bernard is trying to figure out how the heck Gid found him. And so he's checking his car, and he opens up the door to the gas tank, and he sees on the inside one of those GPS tags that you can buy online, like the air tags or what have you.
Yeah, which we did see. We, as the audience, saw that when he put it in there, when he first dropped that envelope in the window for Fang, and when Bernard took off. We kind of skipped over that, but that happened on the street, the first scene that they were together.
Yeah.
And he slipped it into the gas tank, but no, Fang didn't even notice because he was too busy looking at the envelope that he got.
Right.
But yeah, so he's been tracking him. He wants his money, and he's doing whatever it takes to get it. So he's been tracking him.
And Bernard does the smart thing by not ditching the tag because he knows that that's going to just escalate the situation with Gid. So he's like, "There's no point now. Just keep it here." And so they end up parking out by an area to look for the next part. And Bernard is basically saying, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to divide and conquer. See if we can get something going out. We'll meet back here." And so that ends up happening. They're going after this Piper Paisley thing. They're trying to get the photos and what have you. And Fang ends up taking this opportunity to sleep in the car because he has nowhere else to go. And he's woken up by Gid, who's banging on the side window and saying, "Hey, where's Bernard?" And Fang is lost. He's he has no idea. He's maybe he went into the hotel. And Gid's no, the guy ran. And guess what? Since you're his partner, you owe me, what he owes. And Fang is like, I don't have money. And he's like, well, then you have a problem. And and it's funny because he apparently, Fang, Bernard owes like $3,500 in missed payments, which is not necessarily the total. And of course, he gets a little rough with Fang, and Fang manages to kind of get away and say, all right, this is the deal. Like, when I can cash in the next thing, I guess the money is yours. And so Fang is trying to get out. He's at the Port Authority. He's trying to get to Chicago or something. But it's like $150 one way to get there, and he doesn't even have that. He doesn't even have like $30, let alone 150. Yeah. And as soon as he's about to argue for like a student discount or something, this is where we get an introduction of further escalated stakes, and that is a social worker has called him and informed Fang that his mother has gotten into a physical altercation with one of the other patients, and they're saying that she's not in a position for them to take care of her anymore, and so he has 30 days to find a new place for her to live and get care. And that throws us our ticking clock escalation. It's like, now it's not just about getting money to survive. It's also getting money to find a new place for his mother to live, where she can get the care that she needs. And it's pretty... I thought this is a really good escalation now. It's a very logical one. Yeah, well, a woman in her 50s suffering from dementia in a public care facility. Those public care facilities are gonna... they're going to scapegoat and get rid of anyone that's difficult as quickly as they can.
Yes.
And it's a very believable situation. And I wanted to get your opinion. It's like, how did that hit you in the feels? What did you think of like Fang's plan of action to try and mitigate this or come out with a different outcome?
No, I liked it. I thought anytime you could put a timer on something, that's one of the tried and true methods of putting pressure on any story, right? Mm-hmm. Come up with a believable reason, and no better way apply pressure, no better way to do that than putting a clock on it. He already had enough pressure, right? So I already felt bad for Fang. I was worried about him, worried about his mom, was hoping that we could, wherever this story's leading, that we have a happy ending for him. And then he just gets the crap kicked out of him again. And then he gets this phone call, and what's happening? So yeah. Oh, and sorry. And then on top of that, now we have, he's now getting targeted for the debts of his new boss that he's known for 12 hours at this point. Like how long has he known Bernard? So Fang but the thing I like about Fang, is that we see how resourceful he is. We see that where when he finds out about the camera and he's basically laughed at, he doesn't care. He still gets out of the car and starts taking pictures of it as if he knew what he pretended. Mm-hmm. And the script says that he pretended to act like he knew what he was doing. And then and it paid off, right? Well, then on top of that, he went and then he didn't want to spend $15 on developing, so he does it himself, right? He watches a YouTube video to do that. This is a good character because how many shows do we have in contrast to Fang where everything happens to them, not because of them, right? That's so important as a protagonist. And so we see Fang overcoming obstacle after obstacle, not because something comes and saves him or something convenient happens, but because he figures it out. And so, yeah, this is one more thing that we see Fang having to overcome. And I was like, okay, well, now what do I do? And that really pushes him into, because I know what's coming next, it pushes him into what's going to happen next and take the risks into and ultimately receive the rewards for taking those risks for what's coming next. That's how I felt like it was all organic. None of this felt to me like I sometimes if something's like something that pushes the plot forward and it slaps you in the face, like, oh, this is here just for that. I wish I had a good example off the top of my head right now, but I don't. And this writer, this guy that wrote the script is good. I feel like he's a good writer. I don't have any major complaints about this script. So yeah, what about you?
I would say the only type of convenient moment they had is, and this is a stretch on the convenient side, is that after he learns of his mother with the ticking clock at the facility, and he gets a very brief consult with a lawyer about trying to fight that, and realizing that the lawyer can't do anything without a retainer. That, of course, Fang can't afford. He's wandering the alley streets that Bernard showed him earlier, and he manages to capture that Santiago character actor again. And he starts taking a couple of pictures, And then Santiago kind of acknowledges him and says that he's scared, and then he asks politely if like, hey, could you stop? It's my birthday. And Fang had learned a lesson from Bernard earlier, which is that if the guy's bigger than you, or he's more powerful than you, just agree to whatever they ask you to do. Like they ask you to stop, you stop, and if they aren't any of those things, you just keep going. And so Fang stops, and Santiago says, that's thank you, and appreciates that. And Fang just starts talking to him. It's like, this is your place. Maybe, if you want a great picture, like you could change it to something you're more comfortable with, and I can get a few shots. And he uses the whole birthday angle. It's like, yeah, because wouldn't it be great if you got good shots of yourself for your birthday on your birthday? And Santiago's like, you know what? That's really nice of you. Yeah, I'm going to go inside. I'll change up, and then I'll come right back down. And so, you think, okay, is this kind of a gimmick just for Santiago to get away, or is he actually going to come back down? Well, we don't find out that exactly, because the next character we get introduced to is this woman named Daisy. She's pushing 30. She's got a whole bunch of these bulky bags of like alcohol and groceries and stuff, and she's pretty rude to Fang at first. And he's just saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for someone. And he says it's Santiago, and she's like, oh, her demeanor completely shifts, goes 180. She's like, I saw you have a camera. I didn't think you were his friend or what have you. He's crashing at our place. And so Fang seizes the opportunity and says, hey, do you want help with those bags? And she's, of course, like, yes. And she brings him inside to the loft. And this is where we get introduced to, this is where the second act starts. We get introduced to the celebutante world, as it were. And this is where we see all the models that we saw before, plus Nina. And Fang is kind of putting all these pieces together, and he's realizing what's going on here. And then Santiago comes out, sees Fang, and he's dressed nice. He's like, oh, hey, now that you're here, thanks for waiting for me. Let's get some photos. And then this kind of opens up Fang's world, because now everybody in the room is a little interested in Fang and what he's doing. And when they realize that he's paparazzi, he says, well, I've only been doing it for 3 days, and I'd rather get pictures you guys are comfortable with than embarrassing ones. And this really does shift the entire perception of Fang from these models and Daisy and Santiago, to the point where they invite him to tag along for the entire evening. Take photos.
Now at that point, did you feel like this was believable? Because I kind of was like, I mean, I want an interesting story. It can't be boring, but do you feel like that was believable?
No, this one was stretching credulity, but I understood what it's doing is that this is like the opportunity for Fang to partially generate and partially seize. I feel like the writer was making it, he set up a difficulty, and then as soon as Fang overcame that one obstacle, which is, getting into the loft, he kind of let the floodgates open a little bit with all these other opportunities and these relationships coming around. And he's trying to write it off as the ditzy, arrogant attitudes of celebutantes wanting to sort of just bring in or have control over an element of their lives. And it's a really big ask, but it's the only real big ask that this script poses to the reader.
Okay, that's fair. That's pretty much how I felt too. I was like, I'll go with it. I'll suspend some disbelief here, and we'll just go with it. Yeah, and that's the thing, because we kind of need that. We need this to be overcome so that we can go along for the journey and start to see the inside of this world, right? Which is what's going to be more interesting than on the outside looking in. Now we're on the inside being a part of it. So yeah, I ultimately liked it, but I was kind of like, it's not that believable, but let's go anyway, because it's entertainment.
It's not that believable, but this is where we also get into the scenes where it's now very heavy on actions and a lot less on character, because now he is just Fang. He feels like he's an imposter among this group, but he's getting photos for them, and they're playing around with this camera. They're taking selfies as well, but they're also doing lots of drugs and alcohol, and they're partying around. And I think Fang manages to get his drink spiked as well, so he doesn't know what's going on, and he's dancing around, and he's talking with Daisy, who's like still belligerent here and there, but he's also befriending Nina a bit, because Nina had lost her mother to suicide, and And so she's been feeling really lonely, and her husband Riley is in rehab for a little bit, and we find out that he had two options: take rehab or go to jail. And he initially picked jail until the studio got involved because of his movie that's coming out, and forced him to do rehab or he'd never work again. So that was interesting, and we haven't met Riley yet. He's this background character that's just kind of floating around, and so yeah, Fang ends up kind of like, because his drink was drugged, and he's kind of like going on this huge bender with these celebrity girls and what have you. It's like a 20-page sequence of scenes, all of this one night.
Yeah, and this was what I was I kind of mentioned this in the green room. I felt like the script's a little long. Is this where you think you'd cut a lot of that to take it down from the 112-ish plus pages?
Yes, yeah, I definitely. This could be half as long. Like it is almost 20 pages of a party, and then we wake up in the following morning, and a cat named Joey Fatone is there, and and we find out that Fang is allergic to cats, and he starts sneezing, and then I
forgot about the cat, dude.
Then he sees like $100 in 20s like lying on a tissue box or something. And he takes the money, but then he returns like two bills back. So he takes $60.
Good old Fang. That's what I mean. Like, he's a good dude, right? Like, he's struggling, but he's still a good guy. And this was another thing that, like, this character is so well done. I just like Fang. So, yeah.
And so he's the first one to wake up, and he's looking around, and he sees everybody is asleep, and some of them are in various stages of undress. And he's contemplating to, like, exchanging glances between what he sees and his camera, and he's contemplating, like, do I take photos of them while they're asleep? And he finds Nina in her bedroom, and she's, half naked and passed out. And before he manages to make a decision, we find out that Daisy has surprisingly woken up as well and surprises Fang. And they have a little discussion about how cleaners are coming in, and everybody needs to sort of get up and get out. And then she makes an offhanded joke like, wow, it's a kind of too bad that you weren't able to get photos of any of them sleeping. And Fang kind of feels a little defeated by that. And as he leaves, he's passing two Asian women, a mother and daughter team, that are going to be the cleaners. And this is where we get into a little bit of like the social class distinctions between Fang and this group of models and celebutantes. And he feels like, yeah, he can relate more to, that team just working a job, having to clean up after these spoiled brats, even though he, for a moment, felt like he was one of them just, a few hours ago. It kind of like this pulls him back to reality. And so, again, he goes back into the photo lab. He manages to develop the photos. And one of the things he notices is that the date feature on the SLR somehow got activated during the night. So some of the best photos there have the February 2nd date, or no, it's not February 2nd. It's something second date on there. And he's like, well, that's not great. But he manages to, go back to the van, upload the photos. Well, he sets up his own account with his smartphone, uploads the photos, and oddly enough, the Wild Night with Santiago made Fang $4,000, and this is like the most money he's seen in a single, day. And he's shocked, and as he leaves to go grab a snack to eat at like a diner, and as he's heading on his way back, Gid is circling Bernard's van looking for anyone. And Fang is like behind this glass wall of a building, and he's like terrified because he doesn't know what's going to happen. And he gets relieved when he realizes, oh yeah, Gid doesn't have Fang's number or his name or anything about him. He just knows that he's this partner to Bernard. And so he stays motionless. And we have this really tense scene where there's a moment where you think Gid sees him, but he's actually just sees the reflection in the glass of the building that Fang is inside of. And I thought it was a really fairly paced scene, and well done for a written script, as opposed to how I've seen it done in other areas where they kind of just like they spoil that fact right off
Too
the
soon.
bat.
Too soon. Yeah. I agree with that. That was cool. Um, yeah. Did anything else? Did we cover everything that happened at the party? I'm trying to remember. Because did he meet Riley that night? I thought Riley was there.
No, Riley's not there. Riley comes in for the next party.
Oh, the second party. That's right. Okay. You're right. You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Okay. I'll shut up.
So what ends up happening is like, so Fang, now that he's got this 4 grand, he's got to figure out he can finally do something with the money. So he ends up buying a cheap laptop. He buys a better shirt. So he has a change of wardrobe, and he ends up talking to a private care center to see if his mom could be transferred there. And they basically say, yeah, it can happen, but it's going to cost like around 9 grand a month to do that, plus, a down payment of additional fees. And, Fang makes a joke like, wow, can I live here too? and of course, the administrator doesn't process it as
I think it's very
sincere, but he thinks it's a joke as well. But Fang is a little bit sincere on that.
Right.
And so, like, we also find out that it's just him. Like, he has no siblings. He has no parent. Aside from his mother, he doesn't have a father anymore. We don't know what happened to him, other than the fact that she had been working up until about 6 months ago. And her dementia got so bad that she ended up losing her job, and he had to put her in a home. And they also lost the apartment, like, right around the same time. So this has been a pretty rough period for Fang. Making ends meet at whatever he can. But he then starts to use his wits and guile to figure out what to get more photos. So he Google searches about how to find photo location using metadata, and downloads the various apps to help him do that. And then he ends up finding Santiago where he is, and then just kind of bumps into him. But he also uses the lessons he learned about the paparazzi, which is that if one paparazzi kind of gets inside the shot, it kind of scares off all the others. And he displays this because an older paparazzo has found Santiago and his group of friends and is about to take some photos, and Fang is right there just in the convenient nick of time to step in and completely ruin the opportunity for the older guy, who then screams at him for ruining his shot. And then, of course, this helps him earn some cred with Santiago and his friends, because he's proved that, what his presence is actually of a better benefit to them than him hiding in the bushes, taking shots from afar like the other guy was. So they kind of like say, hey, you should join us tonight as we go to this, underground wine tasting dinner. And that was kind of like, this is now his in at the moment. And so we follow him around as he kind of integrates with this group of people, getting great shots of them, shots that they approve of. They start, asking him questions about how much he makes, or how much money did their photos make from the night before, because they saw the news article, they really liked it, it showed them having fun and in good light. And of course, the girls get a little competitive, and it's like, oh, my photo only brought in like, a couple of bucks, and this other one brought in like 50, and this other one brought in 1,000. and you think that there's going to get to like a cat fight of competition, but no, it's actually just like the competition is like who can look better, so that we can get higher dollar amounts. Even though they're not seeing a cent of this, they see it as like a metric. And I thought this is kind of interesting. It plays into their egos. But at this point here, and I'll let people and listening in know, is that these models that are talking, they don't have names. They're just models 1 and 2. And and they're just superficial characters. And I think that kind of goes into what you were saying earlier. It's like, aside from Fang and maybe even the mother, who can only say one phrase, a lot of the other characters do not have a whole lot of substance behind them.
Yeah, and that's my I'll go back to that. That's my biggest complaint, is just that outside of Fang, it's just everybody's very lukewarm, I guess is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
But that's what's weird about this whole script is I feel like the pacing's a little slow, it's a little long, but the overall story and everything, and the way we see it, and the way it's so easy to see the script come to life, like in your mind's eye, what it would look like on camera. is awesome. It's great. I can see everything that he describes. You talked about the mirror thing. I know I don't want to reveal anything at the very end, but the closing scene on this again is very well done.
Yeah.
I can totally see how that's going to look on the big screen, and so yeah, I think if I'm totally honest, what kind of bogged me down in the script is just I don't really have much interest in this world at all, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't relate to having any desire to chase anyone around, let alone a celebrity, right? And try to do this. I understand it's the world. I understand there's a lot of people that, it exists for a reason, right? But so I had to kind of like keep pulling myself back into this script and be like, because it's like anytime you're reading something that you're not super interested in, it takes a little bit more effort. And anytime I got to Fang and I got to these cool little moments where I see him tackling stuff and overcoming stuff and rising to the challenge, it kept me going in this script. And so Fang is the story for me. And I know that's kind of dumb because he's a protagonist, but he really does. Most scripts I have one or two other side characters that I like as well, and that I'm interested in seeing on screen, but Fang is really this whole story to me. I don't care about the models. I don't care about Nina. I don't care about Riley. So I kind of felt like let's get back to Fang anytime that when they did get some screen time. So I don't. Did you feel that way?
I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of that. I appreciated reading more about Fang than the other people. I also kind of like appreciated that the writer was trying to create a bond between Fang and Nina. Like first, it starts off with the fact that Nina's mother passed away, and Fang has implied that he's lost his mom too, but she assumes that it's through death, but he's referring to it as dementia, but he's not going to correct her because he is kind of figuring out that this group of celebrities of sorts is his cash cow, because he manages to make, from that next set of photos, he manages to make a total of like $7,000. And so he's been able to do something he hasn't done in many months, which is he's able to rent this tiny shoebox apartment. So he actually has a place to stay and live. So he's reaping the benefits of this paparazzi, and he's learning from the agency rep that his photos are good, but he needs something more dramatic if he wants to get some real money, especially money that can help his mother. And so what we learn is that he's got to figure out another way. So he comes up with a scheme where he tells Santiago that, I think I left my wallet or my bag at your place. Can I just pop in and get it real quick? And Santiago ends up giving him the security code to get into the loft, because there's no lock and key. It's all keypads for these famous people, because they can't afford to have a key on them. They have to have all this digital metrics going on here. So this now gives Fang the ability to come in and out of that loft at his whim. So he can now get in there and he can sneak around, take some photos, what have you. So we see him being a little bit corrupted by the paparazzo life, which I think is kind of interesting. And then we get introduced to this other character named Xander, who he's part of an entourage. He has no talent, no skill. He doesn't actually do anything other than kind of sponge off everybody. But he takes a liking to Fang, and so they kind of just keep on talking.
It's that lucky camera. I figured it out, dude. It's the lucky camera.
It's the lucky camera, right. And then we kind of find out that Riley is actually, he's getting out of rehab and he's going to be coming home soon. And this is our mid-act turning point, because at the same time that this is happening, there's a detective, a female detective in her late 50s, who is investigating the murder, the alleged murder of this young woman who was thrown from a building. And for some reason, the detective has gravitated towards Fang because what you don't know in this paparazzi world is that as the photographer, your name is attached to the photo when they buy it. It's part of the terms and conditions. So it's not like in the old days where sometimes you could have photos sent into newspapers anonymously and you collect your money and you go. In this case here, his name is now on public record of various news sites for providing photos of these celebrities, and this detective is investigating Riley and everyone he's connected with regards to this crime that has occurred. And so she manages to hunt down Fang, and it's like, hey, can you confirm the various dates that you took these photos. And Fang's like, yeah, well, in this case here, I know it's on this day because the date timer is imprinted onto the photos. And this boggles the detective because she's like, this doesn't line up with the timeline that she has. And so this also stimulates to Fang, that brings in a third subplot, which is now the mystery of, did someone in this clique that Fang has been attached to, are they responsible for killing this girl? And the detective ends up handing Fang a photo of the murder victim that's in this dress. And oddly enough, Fang also happens to have a photo that he took while he was wandering the streets of that crime scene. He actually has a shot of the deceased having fallen, before her body was covered up. And so he recognizes that the dress, but not the girl. And he goes back to that original photo, and he ends up using the color correction app on the laptop that Bernard showed him. And he ends up finding out that, yes, the girl in the photo that was shared with him, plus the one on the crime scene, is the same person. And so now he's got this weird detective subplot where he's trying to figure out, is Riley the guy responsible for killing this girl, because he finds out that there's also a photo of Riley with her before he went off to rehab. But the timeline doesn't add up because Riley is gone, but she somehow this strange woman has somehow died. And I thought this was kind of like a red herring moment for the story, because I don't know if it was exactly needed. It felt like it's the writers like trying to write to meet a deadline of a page count, as opposed to escalating the stakes overall, right? Because now it goes into, okay, so we have Bernard has a debt with loan sharks that has now been appropriated over to Fang. Fang also has to get money to save his mother for continuing care, as well as stay alive himself. And now we're throwing in this completely kind of out of left field investigation into who killed this character that we never met, don't know her name yet, but it looks like Riley or someone within his circle is implicated in that, and Fang has now access to this circle. So what were your thoughts with having these three subplot elements kind of fighting for attention as we got it further into the second act?
Yeah, I think it's in my notes I put down Michaela. Is that who was the girl that got murdered?
Eventually, yeah.
We don't know that yet in the story, but that's who we find out later it is, right?
Yeah, in the last 10 pages.
Yeah, so it felt like at first I thought it was just going to be a quick little thing, and then it kept going. And so with like you, I thought, okay, is this just going to be another red herring that's going to mislead us away from something else? Is this just another way to show that Fang is crucial in this role, right? Like with this group and what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And if so, it could be interesting. But the first thing, this is like my 11th or 12th script I've done with you. And so the first thing I do now when you send me a script or when you send out the emails from Patreon is I look at the length. It's the first thing. And I didn't do that for like the first several scripts. I didn't even think about it. And now that I've read enough, I'm like, it's interesting how you can quickly go, okay, is this going to be a tight, punchy script, or is this going to be longer? Mm-hmm. And I still haven't learned all the rules on genre, because I know some genres are typically longer than others, right? It's okay to have a longer script on some genres over others. Is that right?
I mean, it depends, really. It's the story itself more so than the genre. But yeah, like ideally you kind of want to hit that 90 to 100 page mark. That's your sweet spot.
Like a horror film versus like a romantic film or something, right? It's typically going to be shorter than the other. Is that right?
No, horror and romantic comedy film would be roughly the same length, but it'd be a little bit shorter than typically your action adventure film.
Gotcha.
And definitely shorter than your straightforward drama. Like your dramas are supposed to be like 120 pages or 2 hours. Your action film should be like an hour 45, so that's like 110 pages or less, a little less than that. And then your horror and comedy should be horror, comedy, and romance should be between 80 and 95 pages.
And these are pretty hard rules, or there's always exceptions. I know that
these are more guidelines than rules, but they're usually it's predicated on the fact that audiences tend to respond better to tighter stories. with simple plots and complex characters, as opposed to the elongated ones. So anytime you're broaching the 2 hour point, you have to make sure you've got some really great characters, a very easy to comprehend plot, and every scene feels like it is contributing to the story and it's not just padding out for screen time.
So a great example of something that's long but is acceptable as an exception would be something like, say, The Lord of the Rings, that you've got like a 2 hour 45-minute runtime. Your something like that is acceptable because it's so well done, because it's so good.
Well, because it's so good, but also because someone like Peter Jackson, he has directed enough movies where he knows how to effectively utilize every moment of that time. Like there's never really anything that's dull in The Lord of the Rings because every scene is so prevalent, and if it's not prevalent with regards to moving plot, we're also getting a vista landscape, but we're not getting 3 or 4 minutes of the shot. We're getting like a couple of seconds, so that it just resonates hard enough, and then it gets right back into the story. A slightly better example when you're dealing with something that isn't based off of a book that has had decades of success to warrant, how to utilize that on screen, would be the movie True Lies. So True Lies is a very long film, but it doesn't feel very long because it's a very well-paced, well-structured story where every scene has a beginning, middle, and end, and a point to serve in its plot. And that's a movie that's based off of a comedy series in France. And it was a comedy series in France that was short-lived, but it was only a few years after it ended that James Cameron adapted it to the feature film of True Lies. So that is something that you're looking at. Like normally that movie should have only been an hour and 45, but I think it's like pushing 2 hours and 30 minutes, like in its final run. But it does. But if you were to watch it, you would never think it actually feels that long. And that also goes to the fact that James Cameron had been working in film for a decade by the time he got to that one, and so he also knew how to make sure that every single thing came and had an impact on the story at hand.
Yeah, because you're always torn as a writer. You want forward momentum, right? If it doesn't further the plot, cut it, right? Get rid of it. But
Right.
yeah, you can look at something that's really long. And I think action movies might get a pass. Something like another example would be like Endgame, right? The Avengers, where it's really long, but it's so good and it's wrapping up such a huge storyline. We kind of forgive it and we don't really get that bored with it. At least most people don't. I know
Well,
some
it's
people don't like
predicated on Infinity War, which was actually a better story and tighter. Endgame is just an elongated third act. And you could probably cut a good hour out of that movie and not miss anything.
Gotcha. But the action sequences can really start to add up the minutes on screen. And if it's good action.
If they're too long, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, sorry. I know we went down a little bit of a side
No,
path there,
that's
but
quite all right.
This is the stuff that I like to hear when you talk about on the show because, those of us that don't know as much, to me, it's more than just the scripts. It's seeing how it all comes together and the psychology and the reasoning and the history of scripts and why they are the way that they are. But yeah, so back to the script. I think that I forgot the original question now. Script, what was it?
Well, the question is that we have these three subplots that are intertwining and they're not being resolved. And
is it a waste of time? I felt like this subplot was a bit of a red herring, and it was fine. I didn't hate it. It did just kind of felt like it was meandering, I guess is the best way I'd describe it.
Well, it comes down because so here's another type of writing trick that you kind of want to maintain as best you can is don't start more than an additional subplot until you've resolved a previous subplot. So you can go back to like the classic, the one that the majority of the world has seen, which is like Star Wars, right? So the first subplot is to get Luke off of Tatooine. Like that's his first story. That's when we introduce him, he wants to leave home. And so the entire plot of Luke at that point is we're showing him his life, we're showing him the conflicts, and we're showing the results of what happens that gets him to leave home. So that's your mini story number one. Once that's done, we never go back to that again. It's done. It's over. It's complete. But that segues and escalates into the next part, which is, well, the reason he's leaving home is not only because his aunt and uncle are killed by the Empire, which are looking for the droids. It's now we're leaving home to return these droids to the rightful owner, which is Princess, and she needs them in order to stop this super weapon that is going to be unleashed on the galaxy. So that's the next part. So the next part is like, okay, they're on their journey. to go return the droids to Princess Leia. They do so by meeting Han Solo and going to Alderaan. But then you have on the other side of things, the Empire is trying to find the Rebel base, and in order to do so, they destroy Alderaan as a threat to Leia in order to expose that location. So we have this other plot, which is, now we realize that the very place that Luke and Obi-Wan were headed to no longer exists. So now that subplot is done, but the byproduct is that the Death Star is still in the region of space that Alderaan exists, and they have now been captured by the Death Star. So what's the next thing? Well, get off the Death Star. How do they do that? Well, they don't know yet. But while they're hiding as stormtroopers, they find out that Princess Leia is here, who sent the message. So now their plan is, not only do we have to get off the Death Star, we need to rescue her as well. And then Obi-Wan separates, and that's their next story. And once they get off the Death Star, that plot is resolved, right? So you're not going back to it. But here in this script, we still have the open-ended plot of, we've got the money that's being owed to Gid, we've got the mother that's going to be kicked out of her nursing home, and now we have this murder mystery that has been dangled in front of Fang, and he's now going to take a little bit of initiative to see if he can solve this mystery on his own. And we don't know exactly if he's doing this because it's the right thing to do, or is he doing this because he might get some photos that will give him a huge payout. Completely ambiguous at this point.
Right, and I like that we're seeing Fang, because we're looking at the money and stuff as viewers and readers and going, hey, is he going to get tempted into this lifestyle, right? Sure, his motives are all pure to begin with, but is he going to get corrupted? So yeah, I do like that part of it. Again, here I am going back to Fang. These are the parts that that stood out to me. And so yeah, okay. Now that you've described it that way, that makes a lot of sense. That it's like, okay, we have all these things going.
These are open-ended subplots, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be better to close a subplot. So never mind. I was going to ask a question on how you'd resolve all this, but I don't think we need to do that. But okay, it makes sense. I'm with you now. Got it.
Right. So this goes back into Fang having gotten the access code to the loft, and so he goes into investigative mode. So this kind of crosses over a little bit with Nightcrawler, who's like doing some breaking and entering and whatnot, and recording footage for the story. Here, Fang is coming in there, and he's taking some photos of the empty place. And as he's start to rummaging around more, and he sees another classic film camera, a regular SLR. He hears the voices of good old Riley Presser, who is the back from rehab, and he's kind of making some loud noises and whatnot. And we also hear Nina, saying some stuff too. They seem to be having a type of altercation. Fang has nowhere to hide, so of course he hides under the bed, and we get the cliched, man and woman having sex on the bed with the home intruder hiding underneath.
Classic.
And it's a classic, and it's a quick climax. And a yellow and gold pennant drops by the side of the bed, and this is your suspense moment. It's like, oh, when they pick it up, are they going to see Fang underneath there? They don't get low enough to do that, but yeah, Fang is basically sees in the reflection of the wall mirror. He can actually get a good shot of Riley, and gets the back of Nina, and he contemplates if he should take a photo or not, and he ends up not doing it. But we also get another added point of suspense, which is that the cat, Joey Fatone, he kind of nestles up into Fang, and Fang manages to sneeze during the shouts of ecstasy of both Riley and Nina. So he's saved by the orgasm, so to speak, in this part, and he has to wait for them to leave before he can jump out of the place and figure out what to do. But before he leaves, he manages to snag the film rolls from Riley's camera, because he's hoping to find some juicy content on there, not necessarily to sell, but he's hoping that somewhere in those camera rolls will give him the evidence he's looking for with regards to the murder, which feels really kind of like an off the beaten path type of story for Fang, because at this point he's just trying to get photos to make money so that he can help his mom. Now his priority seems to be shifting to this investigation, and he ends up screwing up while he's taking some of the camera rolls by partially exposing the film to natural light before it's developed. So we know that there's going to be a hiccup in that area.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this felt like a really kind of it felt like this scene could have either come earlier if we were going to expose the subplot to an investigation, but right now it just kind of feels like just padding at this point for me.
yeah, and this goes back to it being a little bit too long. I just, and the thing that I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit and laughed at the sneeze thing again because
Mm-hmm.
it's a little cliche. It's been done so many times, but I don't know. Sometimes cliches work. I didn't hate it totally. It was fine. Um, and then sorry, you got to remind me where are we stopping tonight for spoilers?
Well, I think because again we get another montage scene of a party where they go see Sister Mister, who I'm not familiar with. I don't know if that's made up by the person or if it's a real band. I have no clue. I also
I
don't
don't either.
care. But we get another like 15, 20 pages of another night out, and this time it's with Riley and the gang. And so, and at this point here, Riley's kind of ignoring Fang, and Fang's not as integrated as he was in the previous party, but he's still able to get some snapshots, but he can't take any of Riley because Riley will destroy his camera if he does it. And then, yeah, it's just kind of like going through the motions, showing Riley being a jerk, then talking about how he's big into black and white photography, and that's what he prefers, and it's just kind of a meandering thing. Like it's not exposition. It's not really much on character, aside from Riley gets this one moment where he kind of reveals that every Monday he was supposed to have like a meet, like a virtual meet with his friends and family as part of his rehabilitation. And every single week that went by, no one showed up except one time his manager did, just to let him know that they're ready to do these other things for his press junket. And all of this is happening while we find out that Fang has actually purchased a couple of those GPS tags, and he's syncing one to his phone while Riley is on this monologue, and then he manages to sneak it into his coat so that he can follow him. And I'm thinking, okay, now we're in what appears to me a completely different movie than what we had before, because we now have another new character. We have a new character that's dominating the screen time. Nina's kind of been phased out at this point, and Fang is planting a tracking device on Riley, really to follow him, just to try and get some shots or determine if he was the person that killed this innocent woman, who we'd never seen alive at all in the story.
Yeah, do you think at this point that Fang's main motive is the payday or the solving a murder?
I think it's more of the solving the murder, because it for this entire stretch of the second act, there's no mention of money or funds that he is getting at all. Like, it's completely done, because up until this point we find out, oh yeah, he's got $4,000, then he's got $7,000, now his account's down to $6,000 and $6.2 grand, and then as soon as Riley gets in the picture, we get nothing of him trying to sell photos or get a story or anything of that nature. It's all
That's
just
true.
focusing on this kind of investigation and trying to put things together. And it even gets to a point where he manages to get a one-on-one with Nina, and she's throwing herself at Fang, and Fang is just really uncomfortable with it. And then she gets all upset with it, and he starts trying to figure out, oh, is Nina the one who managed to push the girl, out of the window and onto the street that, led to her death? And we get this setup scene where they're out on the roof, and it's positioned in a way where you think she's going to do that to Fang, and it's not. Like, it's all kind of like, it's all misdirect. And it ends up getting into like something really crazy, because Bernard ends up coming back into the picture, and he's freaking out at Fang, because he's like, yeah, man, we had a deal 80-20, and you're making bank, so you owe me this cash, just at the time when they bring up the cash again, and Fang has enough to actually transfer his mother into this new facility.
Yeah.
And he what's really weird, and I think this is also another convoluted aspect, is that he writes a check in the bank, and he has a checkbook now, so he writes a check while he's in the bank, and he decides to carry it with him to go deliver it to the private healthcare facility. And that's when Bernard kind of ambushes him, sees the check, tears it up, and then says, no, we're gonna give this cash to Gid so that I can pay off that debt, and then work on building my empire. And I feel like this seems too easy. Like, why write the check at the bank instead of just take the blank checkbook and get to the private care facility and just do it there? Because it's
right.
It makes more sense, right? Because now you have this.
It was conveniently there. It was to move the plot forward, clearly,
Yeah.
right? Because it would make more sense for him to write the check when he gets there, and he's at the front counter, getting stuff set up for his mother. So yeah, I agree, but again, it's one of those things you got to stretch a little bit. Like, how else could you write that so that we had conflict and he could have discovered that Fang had all this money? What would you have done?
Well, first of all, I would have. I would not have introduced the checkbook stuff because that's just irrelevant. I think what would be better is the fact that there's this account that Fang has the money in that he has to withdraw from, and I think it would be better if Bernard says, "You're giving me the password for that, so we can pay off the debts for the loan, and if you don't, I would have Bernard draw his gun and threaten to kill him because Bernard ends up having a gun on him." and he reveals this much later after the fact, but I think it should be coming under a physical threat of violence because Bernard is the character who is the mentor character that will betray his student,
and he's getting more desperate, which is good. We're putting because that cranks the heat up on Fang. I'm okay with that. So do you think he should have just been like they're in a parking lot? And Fang's doing the financial stuff on his phone, and he sees it. He just sees the amount in that account on his phone.
No,
and then we have a
he doesn't
confrontation.
know the amount at all because the fact that he's seeing Fang's name on a bunch of photos that are circulating, well, he knows that he's got a bunch of money.
Oh, gotcha. So he doesn't even need to go that far.
You don't need that. You don't need the details of that. You just need to know that he's making a lot of money going solo, and he should basically be saying like, okay, this is what's going to happen: is that. Because I showed you the ropes and I got you started, you're going to come with me and we're going to pay off this debt so that we can build our media empire. And when Fang tries to refuse, that's where I get like Bernard to get a little physical, do the threats, maybe even like somehow risk damaging the camera that he has so that he can't take any photos again.
Yeah, and it has a lot of sentimental value too, so that would be good leverage. I like that.
Exactly. So I'm thinking that's kind of like the way that you'd go. And but before I'd even get to that point, I would end up having Gid kind of surprise both of them because he's been, trying to look for these guys. And then that's when Bernard throws Fang under the bus and says, hey, yeah, no, we've got the money. It's in Fang's account. And then that's where you get into what we have later is like a fight, a beat up scene. Like, they're breaking his arms and legs, or at least they're breaking Bernard's arms and legs. For the money that's owed, even though in the way the script is written, he signs a check. He signs Fang's checkbook and hands over a check for $6,000 to Gid, which covers the 35. But of course, when you're dealing with Loan Shark, they want more. They want more money and interests because essentially they're going to be stealing from you in perpetuity.
Points. They want their points. They want the points on top of the cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was good. It's interesting to see. Hold on. I had a thought. I just lost it. Let me get back to my notes. Hold on.
Okay, no problem. But what we end up having is after this altercation with Gid, and Bernard has got a broken arm essentially, and he now withdraws his gun for the first time, and him and Fang are kind of figuring out what to do. Fang goes to the public care center to tell his mom that he's gonna try and save her somehow, and as he's approaching there, he sees the caregiver who's trying to clean up and change Fang's mother is actually being pretty rough, like grabbing her wrists and kind of like roughing her up a little bit, trying to get the clothes changed. And that's when Fang realizes that it wasn't another patient that injured his mom, forcing them to get rid of her. It was the caregiver was abusing her, not like in any sort of adult or disgusting way, just like hitting her or smacking her or whatever to cooperate. And he realizes that it's an internal thing. The caregiver has hurt her. and they're using those injuries as an excuse to get rid of her so that they can't care for her anymore, even though they're the cause of it, or at least this particular caregiver is, and the rest of the facility doesn't know about it. So this kind of really upsets him, and of course, he's trying to get his mom back into that thing at the other facility, but he doesn't have any money for it right now, or at least he kind of does have the money because the check hasn't been cashed yet. But he decides that he's going to go back into the apartment and try and find something else, because during one of the very elongated second party scene, Nina confides in Fang that she wrote a grief journal, and it's in her dresser drawer in her bedroom. So Fang thinks that this, out of desperation, he can take photos of this journal to sell to the tabloids and hopefully, get the money needed so that he can save his mom. And as he's taking these photos, and he turns around to leave, he sees that Nina is in the bathroom staring at him, but she's also motionless. And then he sees that there's a syringe sticking out of her forearm and a tourniquet around her and vomit on her chest. And it seems like she is now OD'd off of heroin. And I think that's where we'll cut off the spoilers for this point here, because then we start getting into the third act where we see, well, what happens. What's the result of this now that Nina is supposedly gone, and Fang is in her apartment with her lifeless body? How is he going to get out of this one? So now we have another escalated stake with the other three still not resolved at this point. And this is towards like the 90-page mark of the script. That's only, as you mentioned earlier, 111 pages thus far. So did I buy you enough time to remember your question there, TJ?
No, I was too busy listening. I think that that's a good spot to stop, just because there's several things that still have to be wrapped up, right? And yeah, that's fair. I mean, in a way, I feel like we're stopping a little early, but there's a lot. There's a lot that happens, but I still don't think that what does happen from here on would take another like 30 pages. So, or yeah, 25 or so pages. So, yeah, we better stop right there. But sure. Yeah, I love Fang. I love how he just keeps on getting the pressure cranked up. Can we talk about conflict for a minute? Because I want your opinion on something. I want your advice. Have you been watching 1923 at all?
I've only seen the first season. I haven't followed up with the second one yet.
Oh man, I don't know if I can ask you this then. I'll ask you generally. My biggest complaint with the current season, it's good. It's just, it's like all the shows that Taylor does.
Soap opera, yeah.
but this one, I'm watching every episode with my girlfriend, and we like the first season. We watched Yellowstone. My complaint is that it seems like this season is like every episode, or not every episode, the last two specifically, have really felt really slow, even though there's a lot that happens and it's super drama. But the problem is, back to conflict. I'm not going to get into details because people that need to watch it, I don't want to spoil it for them. But our two of our main characters are trying to get to Yellowstone, right? They're trying to get up there, and it's like they're never going to get there. It's just one crazy, insane thing prevents them, and then it's another. I will give you details if you want, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody. And I'm just watching this show. Well, we both are, because I'm like, is this just me? And I asked Jolene, my girlfriend, I said, hey, what in the world? What's going on this season? I just feel like exhausted and bored at the same time. And so as a writer, what's your advice on when you create conflict, like authentic feeling conflict versus like convenient conflict? Is that the right adjective I'm looking for? You know what I mean? Where you feel like it's just there to prevent them from doing the next thing, and then there's going to be another thing that comes up, and then there's another thing that comes up. There comes a point, and I feel like 1923 has done this, and it's driving me nuts, and I can't quite put my finger on it. So I was kind of hoping you could analyze it from a scriptwriter's perspective and say maybe this or maybe that, but sadly you haven't even seen it. But is that enough info for you to talk about it?
Well, a conflict for the sake of conflict is boring. Like the conflict really needs to come from motivation of another character, usually an antagonist or a third party that has their own story that they're trying to happen, and their actions cause a conflict with your main character. Because a good story follows the rule of cause and effect. So everything that I mean, in some comedies, you kind of want to make the cause and effect predicated on the main character. So the stuff that they do affects their ability to achieve their own goal, and that brings forth the comedy, right? So everything that they do that's going to succeed comes with a byproduct that's actually going to make things more difficult for them. The whole goal for in other films, especially like drama or adventure, is that you're having two different characters competing for something, and each result would impede the other from achieving their goal, and that's why there's that conflict. So it's there. Having something like that you're describing in 1923, where they're doing something, and then all of a sudden this other thing comes out of nowhere just to interfere with them, that's lazy and boring.
Yeah, you've got one character coming from New York, trying to get there on, all the way there. She's going that way, and then the guy, her husband, that they've been separated, right? Mm-hmm. They got separated in Africa, somewhere over there.
They got separated on a boat, I think, because he killed
of
the guy.
The fight. The fight, that was so good. I love that. That whole episode was awesome. And he's coming through Florida, and they both got to get back there, right? And it just feels I'm like, just get home already, right? And it's not a good, like, sometimes you feel that way in conflict, and that's fun. It makes it juicy. You're like, oh man, come on, just do it. It's not like that. Now it's just like, oh my God, are aliens going to come down in the next episode and take his horse, steal his horse in the middle of the night, so now he has to walk. Like, it's just one thing after another. And man, I wish you'd watch it. Maybe next time we talk, hopefully by then you've seen it, because I cannot put my finger on why it's driving me so nuts this season. It's really bugging me. Mainly with those two characters. Like, what's going on back at the Dutton Ranch and stuff. It's good. It's fine. I'm okay with that. What's his name? Is it Timothy Dalton, the guy who played James Bond for a couple?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's so good. He's so fantastic playing the villain. And the way his mind works, like, he figured out, like, he sees a couple of the Swedes that are some of the workers out there just playing around on skis on the hill. And they turn that whole thing into, like, his entrepreneur mind. And he's like, oh no, this is a gold mine right here. This is a gold mine. We can get people with money to come here into the middle of nowhere to feel the exhilaration and fun of living on the edge of society and nature and skiing and stuff. And anyway, that's all good. But the other two, I can't remember their names, but the husband and wife coming back over, great actors, by the way, fantastic actors. But I'm just like, the plot line, it just goes on and on and on and on. And I'm like, dude, just get home. It almost feels like this. If I were a betting man, I'd say we're just trying to drag out the content so we can get all our episodes for the streaming service for this year. That's what it feels like to me.
So it feels like filler. It's the whole, when do we get to the fireworks factory in the Simpsons episode?
Yes, it feels like that. And I just wish I had your experience, because that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I'm sure you could probably look at it and go, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. I can see what they're doing. And yeah, but the fact that me and my girlfriend both feel that same way this season, and we love the other season, tells me that it's not just me, right? Like, there is something that just feels like it's just dragging on. And it's done well. That whole series is shot great. It's written well. It's just, I can't figure it out. Script. I need your brain, man.
Well, I would argue that it's not exactly written well. It's actually affirmative writing to the target audience. It doesn't challenge them, just reaffirms their own beliefs. But it also uses soap opera techniques of high crazy drama that feels very convoluted, and doesn't usually end up sticking the landing. Look no further than actual Yellowstone. Look no further than the second season of Tulsa King. Look no further than Lioness or Landman.
Oh man. Okay, so we can talk about that. Did you watch second season of Tulsa King?
Yeah.
I watched 2 episodes and I got so bored I just stopped. And I loved the first season. But the second season, I felt like there's a lot of these cheesy one-liners that just took me out of it. It seemed kind of like, I don't know. It seemed like more of a phoned-in season than the first season to me. So yeah, is that worth watching to continue on, or did I miss anything?
Well, one of the things that seems to be prevalent with Taylor Sheridan shows and other shows that have the type of political leaning that he uses is that nobody really earns anything. someone with a little bit of power comes in and things just kind of go their way because they're of the right mindset. And then they end up handing off responsibilities to family who prove nothing that they're capable of taking on the responsibilities that they have. And deals just go their way. And that's where you lose the drama. And that's where it becomes frustrating and you feel like that's being padded out. And it also kind of reflects a little bit with this type of script where you have this subplot regarding Riley and a possible murder that is really eating up valuable real estate, but it's better done than what you would see in sort of Tulsa King or any of the Taylor Sheridan stuff, because there is something driving both characters with regards to this part. So Riley has no idea that he's being investigated by the police or even by Fang, but he's got a stink eye about Fang because he's a paparazzo who has infiltrated his family. And Fang has split priorities here, and we're losing sight of his motivation because he's now working on trying to uncover this mystery, while at the same time trying to figure out how he's going to save his mother. And the way that the script kind of reconciles this is a little dodgy, in my opinion, but it's not bad enough to actually hurt the overall script itself. Like, the character of Fang is what makes this script enjoyable to read. It's just when he loses a little bit of focus from the midpoint of the second act towards the end that you're like, okay, this feels like we're going off the rails of the story. However, the writer does do a fairly solid job of bringing it all back together towards the end. So it's a very short, rough patch, I would argue, compared to the overall story itself. So it's not significant enough compared to other scripts where it makes everything fall apart. And the small issues that are there don't build up enough to cause the script to fall apart. So it's really just this one little aspect of introducing a subplot that is that can work if you can tighten up the convoluted aspect of how it's introduced. Like the best solution for this one here is just bring in that murder, that investigation a little bit more prominently in the first act, and allow Fang to make the connection that let's say that Fang takes some photos of the murder and is able to sell them for $100 in addition to the one of Nina Cross as well, so that we show that he's got a little bit of a skill for this that Bernard wants to take advantage of, which factors into what happens in the script already. And then you have this tug of war where Fang's like, ooh, I think, investigating that crime might be juicier than following the celebrities. And Bernard has to be the mentor, the bad mentor who says, listen, murder cases can go on forever, and it ends up becoming like the same photos all the time, and there's never any new information, there's never much development, plus the police get on your back because you're interfering with an investigation, so you don't need that headache. Go focus on the celebrities. It's easier money. And then you have that set up. So now you've got this setup of Fang in the back of his mind thinking, well, my own curiosity kind of wants to see that story to its conclusion, but at the same time, if the celebrities is the easy money and I need money to help my mom, I'm going to go for that. And then when those two stories come together naturally, then you have something that feels a little bit more substantial in that second half of the second act and the third act. But
yeah, and that's a good thing with writing, right? Is if you have a subplot or multiple subplots come to a head. And I'm not contradicting what you said earlier, where you want to finish up a subplot before you start a new one. But what I'm saying is, in novel writing, it's great. It's actually far more impactful if you can have a sub story or a subplot come to a conclusion, and it ties into the conclusion of your main story, and it all comes together. It's like harmony, right? They all come together at the exact same time. It can be
that
really
works better for
really
mysteries. Like, that's the thing. If you're writing a mystery, that's kind of what you want. Like, if that's your genre, it's like you want to set up all your loose threads at the beginning so that they all tie up neatly at the end. Like, Walter B. Gibson is a pulp novelist. He does The Shadow, and he did a whole bunch of other stuff back in the day. He was a master of this. Like, within the first 3 chapters, you learn who the bad guy is, who committed the crime, whatever, but it's not like you realize that that's the person that committed the crime once you get to the last chapter. Like, it's introduced in such a way where you're like, oh, this is another character who's, participating in a different type of story, but it's threading through with what's going on here. And then as you get closer and closer to the end, all the new evidence that's coming through is just building up a case connecting that initial character to being the culprit at the end, much like a typical investigation would, where you have your list of suspects, and as you investigate deeper, the more evidence starts pointing, towards the most likely culprit. When you're dealing with novels and when you're dealing with all types of stories, it's fine to introduce subplots, but you have to balance them out because there's only so much an average person can retain within a single story before they start getting into a convoluted plot. And that's the thing. The more subplots you have, you're adding more complexity to the plot. And the key to all this most successful stories, the stories that last the longest, is a simple plot with complex characters. And the simple plot is easy. Character A wants this. Character B wants to stop him from getting this. That's it. And it's easy to understand. The moment you start adding in other plots, you're complicating the plot, and you're losing focus on your characters. And this script does have that a bit. We have 3 subplots that come in. We have a highly detailed and compelling main character, but all the ancillary characters and supporting characters are a little bit more on the superficial side of things.
Yeah, and what was it was in the script. I can't remember what it was, but didn't Bernard teach Fang a lesson about that? Like, he said something like the stories are more important than the people, or the people are more important than the stories, something like that. No, remember that when he gave him a one-liner about that for advice? His
lesson was that your picture should capture what is the story. So it's not enough just to have the photos of the celebrities. That what they're doing in there has to create a story that's worthy of being published.
That's what it was. Yeah. So it's kind of on that same note. The other thing I want to say while you were talking, I thought about this about Fang is we're not going to give away the ending, but I love how in the end Fang is. We're still kind of unsure, right? Like throughout the whole story, we see him make all these good choices. He's a good guy, right? Mm-hmm. He's not totally a good guy. He didn't steal $100, but he did steal 60, right? We see him like, and the whole time I'm questioning. I'm like, okay, is he going into the darkness, right? Is he going to end up going to the dark side by the end of this? And instead, the way this kind of ends, it's more like you just still don't know. And I kind of like that. Whereas other shows I've seen when they do that, it pisses me off. I'm like, pick a team. And for him, and I guess it's just how he was written. I'm okay with him still kind of figuring it out because he's got a lot on his plate. And so far, I still trust him because overall, he definitely made a net good of decisions than bad or poor ones throughout this script. And so it keeps him interesting to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. And so with that, I think this is a good place to ask ourselves, is this going to be a green light or a pass for the script?
I would say green light, but maybe we need to do another rewrite. We need to trim some fat here. And then but yes, I would green light this film.
For the concept and the main character and the fact that the problems in it are really small compared to some of the previous scripts we've had, this one here, I'm like, yeah, it's a reluctant green light. It's like there's a lot. It's in a really good standing. Just needs a couple of tweaks, and they're not huge, to get all the ducks in a row. And so yeah, I'd green light this as well. I think it should have been a little bit higher on the list, because
on the blacklist, yeah, it needed more votes. I'm surprised it didn't get more actually.
Yeah, I think it has to do probably with the subject matter, which is that about. A script about taking photos of celebrities and getting into their lifestyle does feel small on a small scale, but the story isn't really about that. The story is about how far Fang is willing to go to try and provide for his mother when he's literally has nothing to his name other than a camera and the clothes on his back. So it's a rags to riches type of story where I can't really confirm if the riches actually come through. You have to read the script yourself, but that is what his goal is. And so yeah, I would actually, I hope that the writer is able to get this over the hump of development and into production, because I would actually like to see how this would be executed in the end. So
yeah, me too.
This is actually a pretty solid script with only a few things to address. And with that being said, let's check in with the patrons there, because remember, guys, for those that are listening out there, if you are a patron subscriber, you know what script we're going to be reading, on every Saturday, and you get to participate in whether you'd greenlight or pass on the script and share your thoughts. Now, currently, right now, a lot of you Patreons seem to be a little apprehensive of sharing your thoughts, and I completely understand why. Maybe you don't want to start an argument between differing opinions. But checking in with the poll for Paparazzo for this episode of 64, it looks like the people who participated in the poll all agreed with us, you and I, TJ, that we would greenlight this script. So that's quite awesome. And then speaking over onto the live chat here, we've got the Dead Man sent in a super chat emoji or sticker, sorry, for 99 cents of a poop sticker. So thank you very much for that. Nice. Greatly appreciated, but not required. So that was our coverage of the Paparazzo script by Christian Nilsson. For those of you listening, please share your thoughts if you managed to read the script. If you haven't read the script, and you can Google it to find it, is available. But if that's posing some issues, please don't hesitate to send me an email or a tweet on or a DM on the Twitter X's there, and I'll be happy to send that out to you so that you can read. Of course, all stipulations regarding trying not to make the script go viral or circumvent the efforts of the writer still stand as part of the honor system here. But I encourage everyone listening to check out the script, give it a read, and share your thoughts here on the channel or on the Patreon.
Yep, I do too. And thanks for having me on here, Script. I love it. It's always great to talk film and story. It's so good to get your expertise on stuff.
Well, I appreciate that. It's also great having you and all the other co-hosts come on here sharing your opinions and thoughts on the script. It really does diversify the conversation a lot. And also, this is something much like a few of the other scripts we reviewed on this show over the past year and a half, or not almost a year and a half, that this will go into production. So we'll be able to do a script-to-screen comparison once this does drop. And so I'm looking forward to that in the near future. So I guess with that being said, if there's not any other final thoughts you have there, TJ, we'll call it a night and wish everyone a wonderful weekend until we come back, same time, same channel.
Sounds good. Thanks, Script.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all for your support and listening in on the channel and all the comments that you have. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And never forget, guys, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.